Hi, I'm Eli Tan, and this is where unspoken words find their voice. I found the letter again tonight, tucked between old photo albums and a box of things I promised myself I'd never open. The paper is yellowed now, the ink almost faded like a memory trying to disappear. It was supposed to be sent to you, Dad, but I never did. Maybe because, deep down, I didn't know where to send it. Or maybe because, even after all these years, I still don't know how to say what I needed to say. You never came home that night, and somehow, everything that followed was divided into before and after. Before the door closed for the last time, after the silence that never left, I used to think forgiveness meant pretending it never happened. But I've learned it's more like learning to live with the echo. It's been 20 years, and I still find myself wondering what you'd say if you saw me now. The life I've built, the person I've become, the man who still looks for you in every reflection. Maybe it's time to read this letter out loud. Not for you, but for me. Because sometimes the only way to let go is to finally speak. Dear Father, you left without goodbye. And I've spent half my life trying to understand why. When I was little, I thought you were a hero. You could fix anything: the old radio, the leaky roof, even the monsters in my closet. But the one thing you couldn't fix was yourself. And I wish I had known that sooner. I don't hate you anymore. I used to, or maybe I thought I did. But hate is heavy, and I've carried it long enough. So tonight, as the rain falls outside this same house, I'm writing not to blame, not to question, but to release, because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's learning to live with what remains. If you're still listening somehow, maybe through time or memory or something bigger than both, I hope you know this. I became everything I am because of, and in spite of, you. If you've ever had someone you never got to say goodbye to, maybe this letter can be yours too. Write it, speak it, even if you never send it. After you left, the house changed. Not right away, it took time. At first, everything looked the same. Your coat still hung by the door. Your cup still sat on the kitchen shelf. But there was a stillness, a kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. I remember sitting by the window, waiting for the sound of your footsteps on the gravel road. Each night, I told myself, maybe tomorrow. And each tomorrow became another silence. Mom tried her best. She smiled more than she felt, worked longer than she should. She never spoke badly of you, not once. That silence was her version of love, I think, protecting me from truths I wasn't ready for. I grew up in that silence, learning to fill it with things I could control: good grades, small achievements, pretending I didn't miss you. But late at night, I still did. Sometimes I'd dream of you standing in the doorway, asking how school was, patting my head the way you used to. And then I'd wake up to the sound of the old clock, ticking through the same empty hours. It's strange how memory works. The mind forgets faces, but never the sound of certain rooms. Even now, when I hear rain like this, I think of that house and how it kept waiting, even when I stopped. Maybe I blamed you longer than I should have. Maybe I thought leaving meant you stopped caring. But years later, I learned that sometimes people go not because they want to, but because they don't know how to stay. I think of you now, not as the man who left, but as the man who was lost. And maybe, in your own way, you were trying to find peace too. Dear Father, I no longer wait by the window. I've learned to open the door myself. If there's someone whose silence still echoes in your life, maybe tonight, you can forgive them quietly, not for them, but for yourself. I started this letter a long time ago. It was supposed to be short, just a few lines, maybe a simple "I miss you." But every time I tried to finish it, The words changed. They grew heavier, then lighter, then disappeared. Maybe I wasn't ready to speak. Or maybe I was afraid that once I did, it would all become real. Dear Father, do you remember the day we fixed the old bike together? I held the flashlight. You tightened the bolts. You told me that sometimes things just need patience, not strength. I didn't understand it then. But now I see that patience is how people survive what love can't fix. You used to hum while you worked that same quiet tune that filled the house. It's strange how I can't remember all your words, but I still remember that sound. It felt safe. There were so many things I wanted to ask you. Why you stopped coming home early. Why the light in your eyes faded before you left. But those questions don't matter anymore. Because answers can't rewrite the story. Only forgiveness can. Tonight, I don't want to ask why. I just want to say thank you. For the lessons I didn't understand back then. For teaching me, even in your absence, what it means to stay when it's easier to run. Dear Father, I forgive you. Not because it was easy, but because it's the only way I can keep your memory from hurting. Maybe this letter doesn't need to end. Maybe some words aren't meant to be finished. They just rest in the air, like the sound of your humming, still finding its way home. If there's something you never got to finish, a letter, a word, a goodbye, maybe tonight is the night you write it. You don't have to send it. You just have to begin. I used to think I'd never be like you. I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd be different, more present, more open, less afraid to stay. But as years passed, I started noticing your reflection in mine, in the way I laughed, the way I fixed things when they broke, and even in the quiet moments when words felt too heavy to speak. Maybe that's what love does. It hides in the small habits, in the silence between sentences, in the pieces of us we don't even notice we inherited. I found your old photo today. Creases on the corners, a faint smile that looked almost shy. For a moment, I didn't see the man who left. I saw a young dreamer trying to be strong in a world that kept breaking him. And somehow, I forgave him because I see him in me. Dear Father, I've grown older now. I carry some of your fears, but also your strength. You didn't get to see the man I became, but maybe, in some quiet way, I became both of us. I think that's what forgiveness truly is. Not letting go, but learning to hold the memory without bleeding. It's not forgetting who you were, but understanding who I've become because of you. Tonight, I'll leave this letter here, on the old wooden table where you once sat, not because I expect you to read it, but because I finally have nothing left to hide. And maybe that's how we come home, not by returning to where we were, but by making peace with where we are. If you've ever felt like your story ended before it began, remember healing isn't a destination. It's a letter you keep rewriting until one day you realize it no longer hurts to read it. When I finished the letter, I didn't know what to do next. There was no one to hand it to, no mailbox waiting outside, just me and the quiet sound of paper settling on the table. For a long time, I thought healing would feel like fireworks, like a burst of light, or a door suddenly opening. But it didn't. It felt like silence. It felt like the world had stopped asking me to explain. I looked around the room. The same walls, the same chair, the same faint hum of the refrigerator. Nothing had changed. And yet, somehow, everything had. Dear Father, I don't know where you are now. Maybe nowhere. Maybe everywhere. But tonight, I finally stopped waiting for you to come home. Because maybe home isn't a place or a person, but a moment. The moment you realize you can breathe again, without the weight of yesterday on your chest. I blew out the candle. The flame wavered, then disappeared, leaving behind that familiar scent of smoke and paper. The kind that says, "It's time." If this story found you tonight, maybe it's because there's a letter you haven't written yet, not for someone else, but for yourself. Write it, whisper it, let it go. And when you're done, don't be afraid of the silence that follows. Sometimes, silence is the sound of peace finally arriving. If this letter touched you, share your story in the comments. Maybe someone, somewhere, needs to hear your words too.